Have you ever noticed how uncomfortable silence feels? That strange stillness when the world goes quiet and suddenly it's just you and your own thoughts. Most people can't stand that feeling. They rush to fill it with noise, with screens, with endless conversations that go nowhere, because deep down, silence forces them to face the one person they've spent their whole life avoiding, themselves. But here's the truth. Being alone isn't something to fear. It's not a punishment, not a weakness, not an empty space waiting to be filled. Being alone is power. It's clarity. It's the place where real transformation begins. When you're alone, you begin to see life for what it really is, not what the world told you it should be. The noise of opinions fades, the comparisons stop echoing in your head, and the masks you wear every day start to fall off. Suddenly, you're no longer performing for anyone. You're just there, raw, honest, real. And that's when you start to see who you actually are. Most people fear being alone because it exposes them, shows them their doubts, their insecurities, their emptiness. But what they don't realize is that those moments of exposure are sacred. That's where healing begins. That's where strength is born. Every powerful person you've ever admired, every visionary, every spiritual leader, every fighter who came back stronger, they all had moments of deep solitude. They didn't find their power in crowds. They found it in silence. When you sit in stillness long enough, something incredible happens. The voice of fear starts to quiet down, and a new voice begins to rise, the voice of truth. It doesn't scream, it whispers. It tells you what really matters. It reminds you that your worth isn't measured by likes, followers, or approval. It's measured by how deeply you know yourself when no one's watching. Being alone teaches you what distractions have stolen from you: focus, peace, and presence. It teaches you that the world's noise isn't inspiration, it's interference. And when you finally pull away from it, even for a while, you begin to see life through a different lens. You start noticing the small things again: your breath, your heartbeat, your thoughts, your purpose. You remember what it feels like to just be. That's the power people miss when they run from solitude. They think they're escaping emptiness, but they're actually running from the doorway to their own strength. When you learn to be with yourself, you stop needing the world to complete you. You stop chasing validation because you've already met the part of you that's whole. So don't fear being alone. Let it strip away everything that isn't real. Let it test you, teach you, rebuild you. Because on the other side of that discomfort lies clarity, the kind that changes how you think, how you move, how you live. Stay here. Stay in this moment. Because the truth you're looking for, the confidence you crave, the peace you keep searching for out there, it's all waiting for you in the quiet. And if you can learn to sit with yourself long enough, you'll discover something most people never do: that being alone is not the end of your power. It's the beginning of it. Silence has a way of revealing what strength truly means. When you step away from the noise, when the world stops shouting in your ears, and it's just you and your thoughts, that's where your foundation is built. You don't need to prove anything. You don't need an audience to validate you. You just need to listen to the thoughts you've ignored, to the emotions you've buried, to the quiet voice that's been trying to guide you all along. At first, solitude feels uncomfortable because you've been conditioned to avoid it. You've been taught to stay busy, to stay connected, to keep talking, as if silence is dangerous. But silence isn't dangerous. It's demanding. It asks for honesty. It asks you to look within and face everything you've been avoiding. That's why most people never grow. They keep running from the silence that could save them. When you stop running, something extraordinary happens. You start to feel your strength returning. Not the kind of strength that flexes on the outside, but the kind that anchors you from within. The kind that makes you calm when life gets chaotic, steady when people change, grounded when the world shakes. That's the kind of strength that only solitude can build. In that quiet space, your mind begins to clear. You start to see what matters and what doesn't. The things that used to stress you start losing their power. The opinions that once controlled you no longer hold weight, because now your validation doesn't come from the world. It comes from your own peace, and that peace is priceless. There's a reason solitude has always been a part of every great transformation. It's not just spiritual, it's psychological. When you spend time alone, your brain resets. It starts creating new patterns. It learns to focus again. It becomes sharper, calmer, more creative. You stop reacting and you start responding. You stop chasing noise and you start building direction. That's why being alone isn't weakness, it's wisdom. The quiet gives you space to listen, not just to your thoughts, but to the whispers of your intuition. And when you begin trusting that inner voice, your life starts aligning with something deeper than impulse. You make better choices, not because someone told you to, but because you finally know what feels right. Every moment you spend in solitude is a moment of construction. You are laying down invisible bricks of discipline, of clarity, of resilience. And when life tests you later, those bricks become your wall of strength. You won't crumble when things fall apart because you've already learned to stand alone. The world will try to convince you that constant connection means success, that being surrounded means belonging. But real belonging starts when you belong to yourself, when you can walk through life knowing you don't need to chase approval because peace walks beside you. That's the quiet confidence that radiates without effort, the kind that can't be faked. So the next time you feel the pull to escape your own company, pause. Sit with the stillness. Let it shape you, because strength doesn't shout, it grows in silence. It's formed in the unseen hours when no one is watching, when you're face to face with your truth. That's where the real power hides, not in the noise of the crowd, but in the quiet of your own heart. The more time you spend alone, the more you begin to see yourself clearly. Not the version you show to others, but the one that exists beneath every mask, every role, every expectation. It's in solitude that truth becomes impossible to avoid. You start to recognize the patterns you've been living on repeat, the habits that drain you, the fears that stop you, the excuses that sound logical but keep you small. And for the first time, you see them without judgment. You just see. That's where awareness begins. Awareness is power, because you can't change what you won't face. Most people live their entire lives running from their reflection, terrified of what they might find. But when you stop running and dare to look inward, something beautiful happens. You realize that your flaws aren't your enemies. They're your teachers. They're the very places where growth hides, waiting for your attention. This kind of self-reflection is not about blame. It's about understanding. You begin to understand why certain things hurt you, why you attract the same kind of people, why you hold yourself back when opportunities appear. And when understanding replaces confusion, healing begins, because clarity destroys chaos. In solitude, you become your own mirror. You start asking the questions that really matter. Who am I when no one is watching? What do I truly want? What do I keep pretending doesn't bother me? These questions are not comfortable, but they're necessary. They strip away illusions. They reveal what's real. And when you get honest with yourself, you begin to regain control of your life. Psychologists say self-awareness is one of the highest forms of intelligence because it creates emotional mastery. When you know yourself deeply, you stop being controlled by impulses, moods, or opinions. You learn to respond with clarity instead of reacting with emotion. That's where inner power begins, not in pretending to be unshakable, but in understanding what shakes you and learning how to stand anyway. Reflection gives you the courage to face your shadow, the parts of yourself you don't show anyone. The anger, the jealousy, the guilt, the pain. You start to see they're not signs of weakness, they're signs of humanity. You stop running from them and start listening to them. And in that listening, you begin to heal. You stop judging yourself for feeling broken and start realizing that breaking is how light gets in. When you learn to sit with your own truth, you no longer depend on the world to define you. You stop chasing labels, stop begging for validation, stop molding yourself to fit what others expect, because you finally know who you are. And when you know who you are, you stop apologizing for it. Every great transformation begins with that kind of honesty. You can't build a stronger version of yourself on top of lies. You must face what's real, even when it's uncomfortable, even when it hurts. Because truth hurts, but it also frees. And freedom is worth the pain of seeing yourself clearly. So stay with your reflection. Don't look away. Every moment you spend understanding yourself brings you closer to the peace you've been chasing in everyone else. When you know yourself, no rejection can break you, no opinion can shake you, no failure can define you. Because you'll finally realize the power you were looking for was never out there. It was always waiting for you within. Once you begin to understand yourself, something shifts deep inside. The need for constant approval starts to fade. The desire to be accepted by everyone loses its hold on you. You stop chasing people who make you feel seen because you've already learned how to see yourself. That's where emotional freedom begins, when your peace no longer depends on anyone else's presence. So many people are trapped by emotional dependence. They attach their happiness to relationships, friendships, validation, and attention. They rely on others to fill the emptiness they refuse to face. But when you build your peace on someone else's presence, you hand them control over your emotions. And the moment they leave, your world collapses. That isn't love. That's dependency disguised as connection. Being alone teaches you something powerful. You are not incomplete. You were never meant to be half of anything. You were always whole. You just needed silence to remember. When you finally stand in that realization, your connections change. You no longer cling. You no longer beg. You no longer fear being left behind. Because now you give love from abundance, not from need. You stop expecting others to complete you because you've already met the version of yourself that does. That's real strength, when you can stand alone and still feel full. It doesn't mean you reject people. It means you no longer lose yourself trying to keep them. You stop adjusting your worth to match someone else's comfort. You stop apologizing for outgrowing people who refuse to grow with you. You stop settling for being tolerated when you deserve to be valued. Emotional independence is not about isolation, it's about balance. It's about giving without losing yourself, caring without carrying what isn't yours, loving without depending on it to survive. When you master that balance, your peace becomes untouchable. You start showing up differently, calm, grounded, confident. You stop reacting to every shift in other people's moods. You stop letting their chaos invade your calm. This kind of strength doesn't make you cold. It makes you free. It allows you to love deeply, but not destructively. You can walk away when something hurts your peace, not because you stop caring, but because you finally care about yourself enough to choose differently. That's what being alone teaches. How to love yourself the way you've always needed someone else to. Every moment spent in solitude rebuilds you. It teaches you that peace is not found in attachment, but in alignment. The more you align with your truth, the less you need to hold on to things that don't fit it. You start to realize that losing certain people is not a tragedy, it's space being made for your growth. And when you reach that place, that quiet, centered place within, you no longer fear being alone. You no longer chase what isn't meant for you. You no longer need to prove your worth, because now you know who you are, and that knowing becomes your armor. You start walking through life differently, not from desperation, but from peace, not from fear, but from fullness. You stop needing the world to tell you you're enough, because solitude already taught you that you are. And when you live from that truth, you become untouchable, not because you've built walls, but because you've built roots. When you stop needing the world to complete you, you create space for something far greater, stillness. Not the absence of movement, but the presence of peace. It's in that stillness where your spirit finally breathes. It's where your heart softens, where clarity begins to unfold. Stillness isn't emptiness, it's alignment. It's the quiet space where you connect with something beyond yourself, something deeper, something divine. When life feels loud, when every direction pulls at you, when confusion clouds your vision, stillness calls you home. It invites you to stop forcing, to stop running, to stop filling the silence with noise. Because when you sit in stillness long enough, you start to hear what you were never able to hear before. The whispers of wisdom, the soft guidance of intuition, the steady voice that says, you are exactly where you need to be. In that sacred quiet, you begin to sense the presence of something greater, a calm that doesn't depend on circumstances, a peace that doesn't break under pressure. It's the voice that speaks not through volume, but through truth. And the more you listen, the more you realize that you were never truly alone. You were being guided. You were being shaped. You were being strengthened. Stillness doesn't demand that you do nothing. It asks that you stop doing everything that keeps you from being aware. It asks you to put down the distractions, the overthinking, the need to control outcomes, and simply be. Because when you surrender to stillness, control transforms into trust. Fear transforms into faith. Chaos transforms into clarity. So many people spend their lives searching for peace, never realizing it can't be found in the world's noise. You won't find it in more possessions, more attention, or more validation. You'll find it in the quiet moments when your soul finally catches up with your body, when you pause long enough to feel gratitude, to feel presence, to feel connected. In stillness, your perspective changes. You stop asking, why is this happening to me? And start asking, what is this trying to teach me? That shift changes everything. Because instead of fighting life, you start flowing with it. You begin to see purpose in the pauses, meaning in the waiting, strength in the silence. That's how peace grows. Not by avoiding the storm, but by learning to stand calmly within it. This is where the deepest form of power is born, spiritual power. It's not loud. It doesn't need to announce itself. It doesn't seek to control. It simply is. It's the kind of power that keeps you grounded when everything around you falls apart. It's the quiet confidence that comes from knowing you're being carried by something greater than fear. Stillness is where faith is built. It's where your roots deepen, where your energy resets, where your mind clears. When you touch that space, you realize peace isn't a reward. It's your natural state. You just had to remove the noise to feel it again. So take a breath. Let the silence hold you for a moment. Let it remind you that you are safe, you are guided, and you are never truly alone. Because the calm you've been searching for has always been inside you, waiting for you to stop running long enough to return to it. When you finally find peace within yourself, everything around you begins to shift. You stop craving what once consumed you. You stop fighting battles that don't belong to you. The noise of the world fades, not because it disappears, but because it no longer owns your attention. That's when you realize what solitude was preparing you for all along, wholeness. Being whole doesn't mean you have everything figured out. It means you stop breaking yourself apart for the sake of others. It means you no longer hide pieces of who you are just to fit into spaces that don't value your presence. Wholeness is quiet strength. It's knowing you can stand tall even when the world doesn't understand you. It's walking through life with your head high, not because you're proud, but because you're free. When you reach this place, your energy changes. You move slower, but with purpose. You speak less, but with conviction. You stop chasing attention and start attracting alignment. People feel the difference in you. There's something unshakable in your presence, something peaceful that no chaos can touch. That's the beauty of becoming whole. You radiate without trying. Solitude has a way of polishing your soul. It burns away the parts of you that depended on noise and leaves behind only truth. It turns your wounds into wisdom, your doubts into direction, your silence into strength. The person you become after you learn to be alone is not the same person who once feared it. You're lighter, clearer, more certain of what you stand for. You stop searching for happiness in temporary things because you found something deeper, contentment, the kind that doesn't vanish when circumstances change, the kind that doesn't crumble when life tests you. You realize that peace isn't about perfect days, it's about a steady heart. It's about knowing that no matter what happens, you can handle it, because you've already met the part of you that never quits. This is what solitude was always meant to teach you, that your worth is not measured by who stays, by what you own, or by how much you're seen. It's measured by how grounded you remain when everything else falls away. True power isn't about control, it's about composure. It's the calm that says, I've been through storms before and I'm still here. When you live from that truth, you stop rushing your journey. You start trusting your timing. You stop chasing what's not meant for you and begin to attract what's aligned with your peace. Life becomes less about proving and more about becoming. And in that becoming, everything starts to make sense. The silence, the distance, the waiting, the heartbreak. You see that none of it was wasted. It was all shaping you into the person you were meant to be. So embrace this strength. Protect your peace. Stay rooted in your quiet confidence. Because the greatest version of you doesn't shout, doesn't beg, doesn't chase. They stand still, steady, and whole, knowing that everything they need is already within. Being alone didn't make you less. It revealed that you were always more. And that realization, that awakening, is the true definition of power. There comes a moment when you stop searching for strength and realize you've been living from it all along. You see it in the way you survived the silence that once scared you. You feel it in the calm that now fills what used to be chaos. The very solitude that once felt like emptiness has become your greatest source of power. You no longer need the world to validate your worth, because solitude already taught you who you are when everything else is stripped away. That realization changes everything. You no longer crave constant company because you've learned to enjoy your own. You no longer chase attention because peace has replaced the hunger for approval. The noise of the world used to distract you, but now you hear it for what it is, just noise. You walk differently, not faster, not louder, but with a stillness that turns heads. Because people can feel when someone has met themselves and come out stronger on the other side. This is what real confidence feels like. It's quiet. It doesn't compete. It doesn't need to prove. It doesn't shout for recognition. It simply is. You carry it in your presence, in your posture, in the way you move through life. Because confidence that's born from solitude isn't fragile. It isn't built on image or praise. It's built on truth, and truth doesn't break. You start to understand that your time alone wasn't isolation. It was preparation. Every quiet night, every unanswered prayer, every moment you felt unseen, it was refining you, teaching you patience, resilience, and perspective. It was building a foundation that nothing external could ever give you. And now, when the world tests you, you no longer crumble, because solitude taught you how to stand without support. Being alone has transformed from something you feared into something you value. You start to protect it. You begin to schedule silence like others schedule meetings, because you know that's where clarity lives. You understand that your mind needs space to breathe, your heart needs time to reset, and your spirit needs moments of stillness to reconnect with its purpose. And as you live from that place, you realize that being alone doesn't mean being lonely. It means being aligned. It means walking through life connected to something deeper than attention or acceptance. It means living with intention instead of impulse. You stop reacting to life and start responding with wisdom. You become thoughtful, grounded, and centered. The kind of person whose peace can't be stolen because it isn't borrowed. That's the gift solitude gives, stability. Not the kind built by control, but by surrender. Not the kind that depends on perfect circumstances, but the kind that thrives despite them. It makes you untouchable, not because you've hardened, but because you've softened into truth. You've learned that peace isn't a place you go to escape life. It's the state you live in when you finally understand it. So keep walking with that strength. Keep choosing silence when the world screams for your attention. Keep returning to yourself when distractions try to pull you away. Because the power of being alone isn't just in surviving solitude. It's in thriving within it. It's in realizing that your greatest growth, your deepest healing, and your strongest faith were all born in the quiet moments where you finally remembered who you are.